Okay, this is going to be Forward, for God's Sake Forward. John F Reynolds at Gettysburg, Part 7 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And the house that we're looking at here is the Jacob Stock House. It sits here today at 407 South Washington Street. It is a brick house that was built in the year of 1859. It was a brand new house, just a couple years old, when Reynolds passed by it on July 1st, 1863. That morning, as he passed by this house, it was a red brick house. It was new. The bricks were nice and pointed. There wasn't any kind of battle damage on the house whatsoever. Within a few hours, this house would change forever, as today it is the most bullet-riddled house in the borough of Gettysburg. Hundreds of holes lining both the eastern and southern end walls of this house. But it's been hit on all four sides. It was owned by a man named Jacob Stock, and it was also used by Confederate sharpshooters as they dueled with Union sharpshooters on Cemetery Hill. On the morning of July 1st, as Reynolds and his staff passed by this house, however, it was a brand new house, just a couple years old, built in 1859. This has been Forward, for God's Sake Forward, John F Reynolds at Gettysburg on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. For God's Sake Forward, Part 8 here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And I'm here near the intersection of Washington Street and High Street. And it was here that John Reynolds, when he reached this intersection, made a left and headed toward the Lutheran Seminary. Now, a few places he would have passed. The first one would have been this greenhouse here, which is the Jack Hopkins house. Now, Jack Hopkins was an African American, and he was also a janitor at Pennsylvania College. To the right is the Eyster Finishing School. This is the building in which Tilly Pierce, on the morning of July 1st, 1863, was at in school when the battle erupted and the instructor sent the girls home. And ironically enough, just a few hours later after that happened, this house was struck by an artillery shell in the front here. You can see it just up here by the windowsill. This was also the first home of the Gettysburg College and the Lutheran Seminary before the complexes were built. But as he made his way here, this house right here is the James W. Foster house. Now, this house was also built in the year 1859, like the Stock House. He rides up to this intersection. He makes a left here at the Foster house. Now, when he gets to this house, two women came out of the house and began to have a conversation with Major General John F Reynolds, saying that there was a battle happening at the seminary complex. Reynolds advised these two women to get back into the house before they get struck by some type of projectile and killed. Now, they did not know at the time, but these women had hid two Union surgeons, one by the name of Thomas H. Beck, and the other one by the name of J. Theodore Herr, in this house. They hid these surgeons, Union surgeons, in this house away from Confederate fire. Now, the seminary is just to the west of us in this direction, so the house had a balcony which sat. Now, as Reynolds was talking to them, several projectiles hit the side of the house in which the porch is on here at the top. And of course, the women, being scared now, believed what John Reynolds said and rushed inside this house. Again, this is the James W. Foster house, built in the year 1859. And if you actually look at the top here, there is a little marker that says built by James W. Foster in 1859, sitting here right in the side of this brick wall. This has been Forward, for God's Sake Forward, Part 8 here at the Foster House on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. This is going to be Forward for God's Sake Forward. John F Reynolds at Gettysburg, Part 9, here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Now, on the morning of July 1st, 1863, just behind me in the cupola of the Lutheran Theological Seminary, John Buford and men from the Signal Corps like Aaron Jerome watched the battle as it broke out. This was about 9:30 in the morning as they observed the Confederate troops advancing on Seminary Ridge. About that same time, Major General John F Reynolds, arriving from the Foster House in this direction, arrives here at the Lutheran Theological Seminary. Now Jerome goes to him that he is to bring up his troops. Buford says, "Hurry up, they're driving in my pickets." A man named Captain Wells tells Reynolds that he fears that they may get to the heights before he does. And Reynolds is given orders by these men to get his First Corps here with all possible speed. This is the first time that General Buford and General Reynolds meet, though Buford has sent him messages telling him to get here. Now, General Reynolds arriving here at the Lutheran Theological Seminary, this is where he actually takes command of the battlefield. Buford will then himself go up into the cupola of the Lutheran Theological Seminary and observe the battle. And from what he sees up there in the cupola of the Lutheran Theological Seminary, that is what gives him the command to come into this field, place certain troops at certain positions. For instance, as he sees Pegram's artillery to our west along the Chambersburg Pike on Hare's Ridge, he knows that Pegram's artillery must be dealt with. So he will later place a battery of Union artillery to duel with that artillery and also to buy him time to bring in his Iron Brigade. This all takes place here at the Lutheran Theological Seminary around 9:30 in the morning of July 1st, 1863. This has been Forward for God's Sake Forward, John F Reynolds at Gettysburg, Part 9 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. This is going to be Forward for God's Sake Forward, John F Reynolds at Gettysburg, Part 10 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Now, while John F Reynolds is discussing with General John Buford in the Lutheran Seminary cupola about the oncoming Confederate attack and also the placement of his troops, it is here that he states that his corps would be on line soon and that he would fight the enemy inch by inch through the town if necessary to prevent them. He would barricade the streets if necessary, and that is the reason that he rode through town and not with his First Corps troops on foot through the William Bliss Farm. While in town, he got a good lay of the land and he got a good look at the town to see what would be needed if an attack was to go over this ridge toward the town, and they would have to fight their way inch by inch through the town. Now, just after this, as his troops begin to come online, John F Reynolds rides in this direction to the west. As he rides this way, he begins the placement of Lysander Cutler's brigade in this area over here, including a main battery, which we'll take a look at in our next video, that he personally places himself over here along the Chambersburg Pike to duel with Pegram's Confederate artillery. This has been Forward for God's Sake Forward, John F Reynolds at Gettysburg, Part 10 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook.